And welcome everybody to the Constitution class. I'm going to let a few people start to roll in. If you're just getting to this, you might want to go forward about 20 minutes when Doug gets here. So, or you could just sit here and listen to me blabber. Looks like we got a couple people. Hello, everybody. I see eyes popping in. Hello, Mary. How are you today? Oh. Remind me where you are, Mary. I see a few people in here. Can you guys hear me okay? Test, 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 test. Okay. So many things happening out there. The thing in Texas, there's another one today. It just feels like they're ramping up on the anti-Second Amendment rhetoric. Almost think that it's I'm hearing rumblings that they want to come after the second. I'm sure Doug and I will discuss that today. Warhamster won't be with us today. He's got something. He had something else to do that he couldn't get out of. They won't get me without a fight. But I'm sure that I'm sure that I'm in the majority. There's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. Starting to get a few extra eyeballs. Hey there, Darren. How you doing? Oh. Boy, the chat is awfully quiet today. Yeah, how hot is it, Darren? And you don't have any internet, Tracy? Oh. Hmm. You turned your internet off? Ew. That is not, that doesn't sound fun, Darren, at all. I know what you mean, though, Tracy. And if in fact that's what you did, turn it off. I'm gonna start going through and nixing things that I don't need anymore. Just doesn't make any sense to be spending the money that I don't need to spend. Ah, gotcha, gotcha. I'm a little sleepy today. I dropped cable TV forever ago. I think I dropped it in 2011. What's going on there, cowboy? Supreme Court blocks. Huh. I saw that the Sussman trial ended in a not guilty verdict. Perhaps. I don't know if I actually think that the Sussman. Oh, I don't think the Sussman trial was so much about Sussman as it was getting certain things into the public domain. Time will tell. Oh, Tracy, I think those are. I think the riots are coming. I don't think there's any stopping that. I see the the rhetoric. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that you know, probably the two most contentious topics out there for um for us between the two sides would be um abortion and gun control. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both of those are being shoved into our faces right now. Just division on a massive scale. Right at the same time, we're getting food shortages, supply chain disruption, high gas prices, and a litany of other things. We'll see. We will see. Well, it's easy for us to say that eyes should be opened. I mean, I agree with you, Darren. But how many? I mean, how long did it take for you guys to open your eyes? When my eyes were opened in 2002. A lot of people's eyes weren't opened until the Rona, you know, the election. Well, that's a good reason to miss, Darren. It's a very good reason to miss. Get that garden growing. I got mine going. Of course, I'm not really doing much. I don't really know how to garden very well. My thumb is brown, definitely not green. Exactly. Conservative. That's exactly right, cowboy. Exactly. Yeah, this was a political chess move. I don't think he gave two craps about Sussman. It's easy to want to. It's easy to complain about people not being awake when we're awake. Once you actually see it, it's easy to complain why people can't see what you see. But you have to consider, how long did you not see it? I mean, this has been going on for us over a century. The chief complaint I get from people is well, I wish people would wake up quicker. Hello, Gloria. Wish people would wake up quicker. Wish they would wake up quicker. I'm trying to wake people up. And people, I have lots of friends who get exacerbated, just power frustrated that they can't get friends to see what they see. You just can't force it upon people. People are going to see what they're going to see. They're going to wake up when they wake up. And Mr. Gibbs is now here. Oh my goodness. Mr. Gibbs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. I guess you and I are going solo today.
Yeah, hang on. Something very important to do first.
Oh.
Got to open the Dr. Pepper,
I
man.
kind of have I have my can here, but this isn't Dr. Pepper.
And hang on a second. Gotta grab my pocket Constitution, my Scott McKay one.
Very nice.
All right. Yeah, introduction to the Bill of Rights.
Introduction to the Bill of Rights. Look at you, right on time, 3:00.
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy, but I was actually running early, and I thought, okay, I don't want to go to the credit union afterwards. I'm going to do it before. Now I'm running up the driveway. Hurry up, put on the green screen. Dogs are tripping me under my feet, but I'm in here.
Nice. Hamsters. Actually, Doug is going to an event this evening, and Hamster's going to that event.
He's part of setting up. He's part of setting up. That's why he's leaving real early. And I said in the text I was leaving at 4. Actually, I'm not leaving until 5. So San Juan Capistrano class tonight. Alan Myers is running that. So there's still a class, but it's Federal Reserve and all that. So I don't have to be there. And he was there last week, so they know who he is. So I don't have to be there. And so I'm doing the event tonight. It's actually for a candidate, but impressive candidate. It's an opportunity for me to hand out business cards and all that. I always love events like that too. But this candidate, Tyler Geffany, running for Congress in North County, San Diego County. And I mean, this dude is awesome. So let's see.
He's running for Congress or?
Congress, yeah. United States House of Representatives.
Which district? 49?
I'll tell you in just a second. I have it actually on my system. I've been working on I wasn't going to do this, and everybody says, well, Doug, we need a voter guide. And I'm like, okay, a lot of work. So I was up late last night working on it and hadn't finished it yet. Let's see if I can find them real quick here. in my voter guide. District 52.
Okay.
Good guy.
I talked to Hamster, and I talked to the guy who's running for 49. Josiah.
Okay, yeah, I don't know him. I haven't met him, but on paper, he looks like the best candidate.
I was very impressed.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so we got the different stuff going on here when it comes to the election.
Hello, Monica.
Here in California, people get
I see that
depressed.
I see that the California legislature they're coming up with four new gun legislation bills. So yeah, I mean,
there'll be lawsuits. It'll be struck down.
If it ever, who knows? Who knows if we even get that far?
All right, Tracy says voter guide for sure. I'm stressed out about it. Okay, it's going to be online, and I will put it on politicalpistachio.com and I'll send out by email. So if you're on my email list, Tracy, you'll be advised. If not on my email list, either get on it or just pay attention to politicalpistachio.com. I'm going to put a link up there actually, so you can go straight to it and all that. But it basically, my voter guide is going to be for San Diego County, Riverside County, Orange County, and San Bernardino County. So I'm not touching the LA County stuff, but these four counties, I'm pretty much touching everything. I've got all of the federal and state offices done. I just haven't finished all the local stuff. And I'm only doing some of the local stuff, mainly judges, because people don't understand judges. I've been researching the judges like crazy. Judges are hard, but if you know where to look, you can research them. And I've got a couple places I look. So hopefully I'll have it done tonight and have it ready for tomorrow morning. That's the goal. Because primary is like a week away, so I got to get it out. I wasn't going to do one. I do one every election. I wasn't going to do it, but what happens is election time, my phone starts ringing. Doug, who you voting for? I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for, but I'll tell you about the candidates, and you decide who to vote for. And I kind of give a constitutional kind of angle, of course. But Josiah is definitely top of my list on that race. So I'm glad you're impressed, because that just tells me I did okay with the research I did without meeting them. When it comes to governor, I thought I had it figured out, and then I met the candidate that impressed me, Daniel Mercury. That guy he rivals me, pretty close, constitutional minded guy.
I was impressed with the kid from I was impressed with Zachy, but yeah. I'm very impressed with him.
Leo Zachy, I think it is.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't really. He has a chance because he's in the race, but I don't think he doesn't have the name recognition or the firepower to.
I hate that term electability, but unfortunately for some races it is a part of it.
But I applaud the fact that he's actually out there in it.
I know get his name out there. Some people remember him. You do it a couple more times, you'll have the name recognition.
What? Excuse me, Miss Cowboy. What do you mean Heller's gonna? They're gonna overturn parts of Heller. What do you mean by that? A conservative Cowboy says SCOTUS is going to make a ruling in June on the Second Amendment that is expected to overturn parts of Heller.
I don't think they're going to overturn parts of Heller. I think they're going to overturn a few other things, but not Heller. They'll definitely not overturn the part of Heller that says that owning a gun is right to, is an individual right. Tracy, I met Renette, and she's a good candidate, but a little too I hate the system for my taste. She hates the system so much that she won't be able to operate in the system, if that makes sense. I mean, I get it. I hate the system too, but it's almost like, so I'm not going to, participate in it. Well, you're not going to be able to do anything if you're not willing to accept some of the parts that you got to be a part of, even though it's not good, if that makes sense. So she's just, and she's kind of, what's the word? She kind of reminds me of Sasha Stone and some of the stuff she believes too. So Don't get me wrong, I love Sasha, but he and I don't necessarily agree on a few things. She kind of reminds me of that. So I'm not a fan of Renette. I mean, I like her. I think she's a good candidate. I don't think we'll lose with her, be bad with her, but I think Zaki's actually the better candidate in the sense of capabilities, understanding the system, stuff like that. Believe it or not, even though he's a young kid.
He's like what, 30, 31 years old. So yeah. I did Beverly. Yes, I did see Trudeau's announcement.
All right. That said, let's get started here because I think everybody's that's going to enter the chat room has entered it. Yep. And I hate starting the Constitution late. Well, we say top of the hour, really should be top of the hour, but sometimes we get chatting about stuff. That's okay. Shoot that rabbit. Get on the main path. Get off the rabbit trail. Ron, it's just you and I. Once again, for those of you who are not aware, Warhamster is it's a little more light in this room so that my background isn't flickering so bad.
It's poor lighting.
Yeah, well, I haven't had. I now have good lighting in here, but I didn't have time to get them all hooked in and on and all sort of stuff. So it'll work. There we go. We got a little bit more light. That looks better. But anyway, that all said, Warhamster isn't here. He's going to be at an event. He's helping set up the event. I'm going to be at that event later, but I've got time to be here with y'all and do a few other things. So we've got introduction to the Bill of Rights, and this is important because rights and the Bill of Rights is so misunderstood. And it's not that you're wrong in what you think; it's that you're not exactly operating on the right premise. You have to operate on the right premise to really fully understand. And that's where the context comes in, where we understand who were the delegates, why were they writing this, what is natural rights. And I'm going to get into natural rights a little bit that a lot of you people who have heard me speak before have not really heard me talk about. This is kind of a new way of explaining it that I've kind of discovered, and I'm kind of jazzed about this way because it really helps people understand. Because our natural rights, God-given rights, natural, you naturally have them. That word natural is important. And I never realized why it was used until I really did some deep dives on some writings. John Locke, one of them. And I've read John Locke before, but when I read a lot of his writing and a lot of the writings of other people like Montesquieu and all that, I was not as mature as a constitutionalist then as I am now. So reading their writings, I'm picking up on things that I didn't pick up on before. I'm actually kind of retraining myself right now. I'm going back through a lot of stuff I studied before, realizing it may say things to me a little bit differently than the last time I went through this stuff, even though it's in my head. And one of the things that John Locke emphasizes, and it's a very good. John Locke was for those of you who the hell is that guy? British political philosopher, 1600s, very influential on the founding fathers. And when he talked about natural law and then life, liberty, and property, though that was he's the one that kind of coined that. But when it comes to your natural rights and your natural law, and it says the Declaration of Independence, laws of nature and of nature's God, it's basically the natural order of things, the way things are supposed to be naturally. It's self-evident. We know it. We know what right and wrong is. We know the way things are supposed to operate. We know when a seed goes into the ground, it's going to germinate. And then the plant that is of that kind of seed is going to come up and it's going to eventually bear fruit or pine cones or whatever type of plant it is. And then it will, photosynthesis, and it will live its life. And then eventually it will die and decay. And then its energy will return back into the environment. This is the natural order of things. We don't expect to drop a rose seed on the ground and watch for a pine tree to grow, because that's not the natural order.
Doug, that's because of carbon dioxide, correct?
Well, I thought you were going to say something like, well, what if it identifies as a pine tree?
I'm just saying carbon dioxide is the carbon dioxide is what allows the plant to grow, right?
Well, yeah, that's what they breathe. I know. We're killing the forest that we were trying to save. Anyway, but no, just the natural order of things. Or for example, you got the moon, right? Around the planet as an orbit. That's the natural orders for it to take the path it does around the planet. Tides are affected, all of that, and that's all the natural order, and we expect it to be the same. In the morning, you expect the sun to rise, and in the evening you expect to see the moon, because that's part of the natural order of things. You know it's true. You've seen it all your life. It's self-evident. We talked about the plant earlier. A woman is impregnated, consummated. The baby's conceived. It starts going through its developmental stages in the tummy. And then that child is born and then becomes a person living outside the womb and begins other developmental stages of life, goes through their life, gets old, passes away. Natural order. Everything in the world, in the universe, has a natural order to things. Sometimes those natural things get interrupted. Sometimes a moon or something like that might be orbiting a planetoid and a comet hits it, let's say, knocks it off its path. The natural order of things has been altered. The natural order is no longer in place. Something else has happened. Whenever you leave the natural order of things, there's a consequence, and it's usually not good. The planetoid then crashes or blows up or winds up spinning off into space or whatever. That is natural law, the natural order of things. That's what the rule of law comes from. You have the rule of law, you have the rule of man. The rule of law is based on natural law, which is the natural order of things. When you abandon the natural order of things, the natural law, and you begin to follow the rule of man, remember, men are flawed, and we have this wonderful ability to make decisions for ourselves. We have free will, so we can actually decide outside the natural order of things. But as in nature, if we make a decision that knocks something off the natural order of things, what happens? There's a consequence. It's not good. Natural order of things, natural law, your natural rights. You have the natural right to live, to have things, to have a home, to build it, to pursue doing that, to protect those things with a weapon or anything else, to protect those things from others, be it bad guys or, I don't know, a tyrannical government. We have those rights because that's a part of the natural order of living and breathing and being a part of this world. Natural order of things, natural rights, natural law. And historically, we have learned, because we do have these great writings, not just the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, but this great thing called the Holy Bible. Some of you may have heard of it. And there's, when we learn from that book, that if you abandon the natural law, the natural order of things, and you embrace man's law, you let go of the rule of law, you embrace the rule of man, doesn't take very long before you start dancing around a golden calf. And things are going, well, to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. So that's what your natural rights come from, natural law. That's what the founding fathers are basing this stuff on. Now, when we talk about our rights, that ties into the natural order. And the founding fathers knew, because man has the ability to make choices, and human nature is, well, not for the good. We have a flawed human nature, and greed and power and, seeking wealth at any means and things like that, that often can be a part of the human condition for some people. And that exists out there. Evil exists. The anger about, or let me rephrase that. Dislike, disdain for the natural order of things is out there. And those people exist. So therefore, we need to guard against that to keep things on the right path, on that natural, on the right orbit, so that we're not a planetary body slinging out into space because some comet hit us. So we have this natural order that we're trying to preserve. We're trying to conserve it. I wonder if the word conservative came from that. Something similar, something that kind of thinking. I don't know. Personally, I'm not a conservative anymore because I've got nothing left to conserve. We're trying to restore it now. But that's a different discussion for a different time. So now hopefully you guys understand this basic idea of natural law and all this stuff. So we have these rights. You have the right to life. It's a part of your natural order. It's part of the natural processes in our world. You have a right to live. You have a right to life. You have a right to liberty. In other words, to make your choices for yourself on the things that's for you, to take care of yourself. But on the same token, the reality is we have to live with other people in this world. I mean, we don't have to. I mean, there's some people that have become sovereign nationals and completely separated themselves, and God bless them, but I don't want to be one. But for the most part, we live in a society, and so we accept the fact that we're going to live together. So as we elect to live together in a society, we have to come up with some rules. We have to come up with laws. We have to have an agreement that this is the way we're going to do it. That red means stop and green means go and yellow means hit the pedal to the metal or whatever. These are the rules that we've decided upon together in order to live together because we want an orderly society. And so that's what is meant by the consent of the governed. We give our consent that we're going to abide by the rules, and these laws are set up in such a way that if somebody breaks them, we have a legal system. We have a judicial system in case it's being broke. Typically, our laws are regarding our rights. If someone betrays our rights, like, Ron and I, we both have cars, we're on the road, and there's a stoplight there, and my right to go to that intersection stops at the edge of Ron's bumper. He has the right to go through that intersection too, but if we try to go through at the same time, there's a problem. So that we're not stomping on each other's rights going through the intersection, we've agreed to the rules if there's a stoplight or a stop sign and there's certain rules of the road so that we're not running each other. So government is necessary. And the laws that are made are supposed to be necessary laws, but nothing more. Now, the comment, Gloria, natural law equals God's law. Yes and no. God's law is more moral law and things like that. Yes, there's a tie-in. They're connected. But natural law it's a little bit more about everything in general. But you're right. It is essentially God's law. God created nature, the universe, and things go the way they're supposed to naturally because of God. So essentially you are right. But anyway, getting back to what I was talking about. So here we are now. We're in the society, and everybody says, well, I have my rights. And what we've been taught is your rights must be protected by government. And matter of fact, it's so bad the government must guarantee them. So you have a right to education. So they're going to guarantee it. And you have a right to health care. So they're going to guarantee it. And you have a right to, keeping and bearing arms. So they're going to, wait a second. They don't guarantee that one. Well, then there must be something wrong with guarantee. It's not an applicable. It's not an applicable definition.
The rights they're guaranteeing require somebody else's effort.
Yes, and so therefore it's not a right.
Right. Correct. So
now we go back to the Declaration of Independence. Let's understand these rights for a moment. Try to figure them out. So we have these rights. So if I have a right to education, I don't have a right to education, do I? But I have a right to try to educate myself. And I hope it's available out there. I'll get to that word. I'll get to that word. Hang on. I know you're excited because you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And you want these different things, but you know what? Yeah. You got to go get after them sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's government's job just to stay out of the way so that you can, right? So now we go back to the Declaration of Independence. This is where Ron's all excited. This is where he knows where I'm going. So in the Declaration of Independence, what does it say? It says that we are given endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the
pursuit
of happiness. I bet everybody in this audience, when I paused after life, liberty, and all of them just continued the sentence in their head, pursuit of happiness. We all know that's what it says. Do you have the right to be happy? No. It doesn't say you have the right to be happy, does it? You have the right to pursue it. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I think a word there that a lot of people don't know the true meaning of is inalienable. A lot of, inalienable, some people, whatever.
Well, it says unalienable. Why everybody decided it says inalienable, I don't know, but go ahead.
Okay. Inalienable is basically means unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor.
Right. It's yours, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because you inherited it from your father. That's your father's inheritance to you. I don't mean your biological father. I mean
Heavenly
your spiritual father.
Mm-hmm. Heavenly Father.
Your spiritual Heavenly Father has given you this inheritance, endowed you with certain unalienable rights that can't be given because it's a gift of God. Who's anybody to mess with it, and who's you to give them away if it's a gift from God? You don't mess with a gift from God, right? You have all of these gifts from God, but the founding fathers knew that government wants to mess with those gifts. They want to block your access to those gifts. They're still your gifts no matter what. I hate it when people say, well, they're going to take away my rights. No, they're not. They're going to block your access to them. I have a truck out there. If someone stole it, I don't stop owning the truck. I don't have access to it until the police find it or whatever. But it's still my truck. They can block your access to your right, but it still belongs to you. It's your possession. And a right, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That word pursuit's interesting. So you don't have a right to be happy. You have a right to pursue it. Now let's go back to some things we already talked about. You don't have a right to education. You have a right to pursue it. And there should be options for you to pursue. And it's government's job to stay out of the way so that you can pursue it and not make any laws that keeps you from pursuing that right. You don't have a right to health insurance or health care, but you have a right to pursue it. You don't have a right to have a cake baked exactly the way you want, but you have a right to pursue it. And if the baker doesn't want to bake it, they have a right to say no. And so in your pursuit, you go somewhere else. It's not government's place to force them to make it for you or to force everybody to make those cakes or tell everybody they can't make those cakes. None of government's business. Stay out of it, government. That's between the cake baker and I, and that's it. And if you don't like it, government, you can kiss my butt. And so that's how our rights are supposed to be, right? So when people say, well, that's my right, and they got to protect it, got to make sure it happens. No. Government's job is to, I'm kind of running ahead of myself here, but it's like the first words in the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law. Last words of the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed. First words of the Third Amendment, no soldier shall. Right smack in the middle of the Fourth Amendment, shall not be violated. That's not language telling government to protect and guarantee your rights. That's language telling the government, hands off your rights. None of your business. It's between Ron and I or the guy on the road and I in that stoplight or whatever. Now, some laws do need to be made about regarding our rights so we get along just nicely, such as that stoplight. I get that. But only the necessary laws. Remember in Article 1, Section 8, remember the necessary and proper clause? The word necessary is important. Second Amendment. It's necessary to the security of a free state. It's what's necessary that we're concerned about in the Constitution. When they go beyond what's necessary, we have tyrants. They're only supposed to operate in the world of necessary. All right. Now, that all said.
Well, they've been operating outside the world of necessary for quite some time.
Yeah, no kidding. Enough said on that. I don't even have to add to that. That was perfect.
Yeah, long before you and I were even, thought of. Probably even triple our lifetimes. You wouldn't? Would you agree? Let me ask you this question.
Okay.
At what point?
So the chat room distracted me for like half a second.
Yeah, I know.
Cowboy and Tracy, but it's good stuff. But go ahead.
I know. I was laughing too. So at what point do you think the government, the federal government, began to violate the Constitution? Almost immediately?
I'm going to say before the ink was dry. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's funny. For example, I'll give you one. It's a good example. People are surprised when they hear me say this. In Article 1, Section 8, it says that the federal government has the authority to establish post offices. What does the word establish mean?
To set up.
Right? Mm-hmm. Set it up. Does it say anything in there about them maintaining them or taking care of them? No. That's up to the state. But yet 5 years after the Constitution was signed and 4 years after it was ratified, the Postmaster General position was created. 5 years after they signed it, 4 years after it was ratified, they're already violating something right there. Well, Doug, we need a central. We do. You don't think the states in the different parts?
I mean, weren't cabinet positions a violation?
Some of them. Some of the departments, most of the departments, some of the cabinet positions.
I mean, well, I don't think there was any department that was. I understand why some of the departments were necessary. So, for example, the Department of State and the Department of War.
Yeah, and they are constitutional. Mm-hmm. Okay, State Department, War Department. I'm sorry, Defense Department, Department of Defense,
War Department.
I think it should be called the Department of Bombing the Hell out of you if you mess with us. Just say what it is.
Be kind to America, or we will bring democracy to you.
Well, my favorite quote is by George Washington. George Washington said, "The best way to keep the peace is to be prepared for war." He was the first peace through strength guy.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
All right, but anyway, so yeah, the ink wasn't even dry, and partly because of Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton, during the convention, said the president should be a king. So, I mean, it wasn't even signed yet, and there was already attempts to go off the principles. Fortunately, there were more level heads than unlevel heads in that convention, and Hamilton's head was on an uneven, very broken swivel. His head was all over the place. But anyway, so yeah, right out the gate, man, it's been getting worse ever since. The purpose of what they did was also to keep the ruling elites of Europe out of our business. There are a handful of others, conservative cowboys, but not many. Maybe 2 or 3 more are constitutional. The Pursue versus Peruse was a pretty good conversation between Tracy and conservative cowboy. Conservative cowboy made a typo. He says we have a right to peruse happiness. But we aren't guaranteed to have happiness and have a right to be guaranteed happiness. And then Tracy says, peruse happiness is the best typo ever. Yeah, peruse happiness. Actually, I think that's what certain neighborhoods do right now is they're perusing it, but they're on the outer edge. But anyway, so we've got these rights, got this natural law, but we're creating this constitution to create a federal government to handle external issues. And we know central government, whenever you create government like this, from a historical perspective, we know it's going to go wrong. We know they're going to try to do things they're not supposed to do. We know they're going to try to be tyrannical. And so when the Constitution was finished and it was signing day, George Mason, Elbridge Gerry, and Edmund Randolph said, we're not signing it. 2 problems. You didn't outlaw slavery, and there's no Bill of Rights. And then after the convention, they went out there and said, hey, states, don't ratify this thing until they promise you a Bill of Rights. Until they give you a Bill of Rights, don't even be willing to ratify it. This was the anti-federalist movement. It was saying this government's too big, it's a worrisome thing, and it's really bad if they don't give you a Bill of Rights. And so the word went out, we need a Bill of Rights because this government will become tyrannical if we don't have a Bill of Rights telling them to stay the hell away from our rights. And a lot of people don't know this, but the Bill of Rights has a preamble. They actually wrote a preamble for the Bill of Rights to explain why we need a Bill of Rights and who it applies to. Now, when we talk about the Bill of Rights, I want also to understand this. When the word went out that Congress was saying, hey, send in your ideas, Hamilton's Curse. Tracy, so you're reading Hamilton's Curse? Isn't that a great book? Boy, I tell you what, if you don't like Hamilton now, after reading that book, you're going to hate the dude. But anyway, so they send out the word, hey, we're going to do a Bill of Rights. We want all the ideas from the states to come in. Send in your ideas, send in your proposals. But we'll have Congress look at them, organize them, and then we'll propose something back to you guys to ratify. That was the plan. Over 100 proposals from the states came in. Over 100 came in. The states were like all over it. North Carolina was like the second to last state to ratify a constitution because they refused until they got a Bill of Rights. And so all these different ideas came in. George Mason was happy. He'd done his job. He watched it. All right, Bill of Rights is going to happen. I've done what I'm supposed to do. George, don't go too far. We want you to help us go through all this stuff. He kind of did. So did James Madison. They wound up putting the two together at one point so they could work it out. In the beginning, Madison was actually against a Bill of Rights. He believed that it wasn't necessary. Hey, we don't give them the authority over guns. Numeration doctrine says if they don't have the authority, they can't make any law on it. But if we're mentioning guns in a Second Amendment, well, they didn't say Second Amendment back in an amendment, they're going to take it as if they can make laws regarding our guns. So we're going to have to use language to make sure they understand. No touchy-touchy. Shall not be infringed should work. So they worked together, and Madison, once those proposals, 14 proposals, went to the House of Representatives, he became a champion for them. He's the one that really got it through the House because he realized how important it was working with George Mason and some of the other people. And 14 of them went to the House and to the Senate, and out of those 14, 12 survived. And so 12 went out to the states, and out of those 12 for the states, 10 survived. And so those 10 became our Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And so now they wrote a preamble. This is the reason. This is the ideas. You know, a preamble is an introduction. Here's what we're doing. Here's why. Listen carefully. So preamble of the Bill of Rights. It's on page 20 if you have this type of pocket constitution. Congress of the United States, begun and held at the city of New York. By the way, yeah, New York was our capital there for a little while during Washington's first year as president. And he attended the St. Paul's Church there in New York while he was president the first year. Under the church and under the portico of that church, there's a memorial to the first person that was killed. Well, the first high-ranking person that was killed in line of action in the Revolutionary War. But anyway, so begun and held at the city of New York. I love the fact they hyphen New and York. Isn't that something? On Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1189. 1789 is when they were proposing the Bill of Rights to the states. The conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers. Who's the it? Federal government. So first of all, if you ever say they or them about federal government, or you hear someone say that, just tell them, no, it's an it. I know for a fact because it says so in the preamble of the Bill of Rights. Federal government's not a who, it's an it. It's a thing. It's like a gun. It works fine unless it's in the hands of the wrong people. So in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. So it's telling us right there, the reason for the Bill of Rights is to make sure that the federal government does not abuse or misconstruct its powers. Now, remember, it's the delegates from the states that are working on this stuff for the most part. The states made the proposals. The senators were chosen by the state legislatures in the Senate. And a lot of the people who wrote the original Constitution, they were delegates from the states. So the states are here in force in this thing here. They're not worried about themselves. They're not worried that they might become tyrants. They're worried about this federal government becoming tyrannical. So when they wrote the Bill of Rights, they wrote it to the federal government. realizing that some laws would need to be made regarding some of our rights, but they didn't want the federal government making any of those laws. That's a local decision. Local issue, local government. So the Bill of Rights is telling the federal government, hands off, none of your business. If a law needs to be made regarding any of these things, it's got to be local. So the conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. So they wanted the government to be beneficial. They knew the federal government could not be beneficial. So this is to keep it from going in that direction. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives. You'll notice they always like to list the Senate first. It's the upper house. It is our form of aristocracy, but there is no aristocracy in the sense that it's not because of you were born into it or something. It's an aristocracy in the sense that the state legislatures were choosing the people, and they're choosing people who have been in the system, who knew the system, who were politically savvy. So this was our version of aristocracy. So Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislatures of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of said Constitution. Viz. I can't remember what it means now. There's a meaning behind that, and I just can't remember right now. Articles in addition to and amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislatures of the several states pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution, Article 5 being where it explains how amendments are done. Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg, Speaker of the House of Representatives, John Adams, Vice President of the United States and President of the Senate. Attest. John Beckley, Clerk of the House of Representatives, Samuel A. Otis, Secretary of the Senate. So this is when they transmitted the Bill of Rights to the states. They're saying, hey, this is to hold back the federal government. Oh, wait, whoa, Doug, are you saying the states have stomped all over our rights? No, not at all. I'm saying the language in these 10 amendments was meant for the federal government. The states have no right to stomp all over your rights. However, they can make some laws regarding our rights. For example, this is one that it took Mr. Partain a little while to wrap his mind around, but eventually I think he came to realize what I was trying to say. Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. If that actually applied to the states too, that would mean that every single state gun law would also be unconstitutional, just like every federal gun law. But we want the states to make some laws regarding guns. I'm real jazzed that my 9-year-old granddaughter can't go buy a gun at the gun shop. Someone's got to make that law. And it's not the federal government. So our states can make laws regarding our rights. That doesn't mean they're not our rights. It doesn't mean that they can just do whatever they want. Still our rights. We still have the right to keep and bear arms. They're not supposed to go past that necessary thing. They can only make the necessary laws. If they go beyond that point, we're supposed to notice, and we're supposed to do something about it. So, yeah, but Doug, California's out of hand. Well, then let's do something about it. And quit asking for the federal government to save us because of what the Second Amendment says. I don't want the federal government to save us. It's none of their business. That's between us and California. I get it.
California is its own country.
In a sense, yeah. And originally, that's the way the states saw themselves originally. Mm-hmm. Now we have a federal government that thinks they're nothing more than provinces. That's beside the point. Right. So when we talk about the Bill of Rights, we're talking about some rights that have been listed, and we're saying, hey, federal government, none of your business, hands off. These are rights. And then we find out later on in the Bill of Rights, oh, by the way, not all the rights are here. The rights that are not here, you can't screw with those either. there are rights that are enumerated or listed in the Constitution. They're not your rights because they're in the Constitution. There's no such thing as constitutional rights. I hate that term. You have natural rights. You have God-given rights. Your natural rights belong to you. If there were constitutional rights or government guaranteed rights, then they would have the ability to interfere or take them away. And I disagree with that. They're your rights. There's God's gift, natural rights. And so when it comes to our rights, it is up to us to defend them because they are our possession. We own them. So it's like my truck. If I don't want someone to take it away from me, what do? I lock it. I roll up the windows. Maybe even have an alarm system on it. I do what I can to make sure that my possession, my truck, remains in my possession. Our rights are no different. They're our possession. They belong to us. And so we need to take the steps to make sure Convention of States, COS.
Oh.
That's what they're talking about. Gene, side note, only because it's so important to respond. I'm gonna chase this rabbit trail for a second. So Gene is asking about Convention of States and saying it's gaining traction. Can you say if we should support it and how long does it take? All right. First of all, as much as I love the Convention of States group, they're wrong on a few things. I do support the idea of an Article 5 convention. That's what I call it. Convention of States is their name for it, and that's fine. But it's gaining traction, if you mean in the sense of gaining popularity, absolutely. Gaining traction as in enough states given the application so we can have one, that's already happened. Over the last 200 plus years, over 750 applications by 49 states have been submitted. We have enough states to have a convention. They don't have to be on the same subject, even though Convention of States says so. So we can have one now. The problem is Congress won't call it. If you read Article 5, it says that Congress shall call a convention once the application process is met. And so what it means by call the convention means to choose the time, place, and time, place, and date. Congress won't do it. And it says shall. They shall. Mandatory. But they haven't. So now how do you have a convention? Congress refuses to call it, which, by the way, for the most part, is their only job with this. It's really all about the states. I believe with the 9th Amendment, thank you, Lisa. I'm so glad Doug is feeling better. You can still hear a little bit of hoarseness, but But anyway,
I liked it better when he couldn't talk.
Yeah, I actually did a class that morning, and it was a loud whisper. I'm in front of the class. Okay, everybody. It's like, and then so I didn't do this show, and then Alan Myers took care of the Tuesday night class, and I just rested. But thank you for welcoming back, Lisa. So we have enough states, but they haven't called it. They should. But I believe that the 9th Amendment gives the states the authority to call it themselves. Darren, that's not true. Hawaii and Alaska are not NATO states. They are technically part of the United States, but thanks for playing. For those of you at home, this ties into a few other theories that go on also with the fact that Hawaii was invaded, which in a way it was, but it's not the way we're being told. There's all kinds of interesting theories out there, and I've done a lot of research because I don't want to fall for any of them, so I make sure I research first before I say something.
I've never heard that.
Oh, I've seen that one, yeah.
No. Darren, I'm talking about talking about Alaska and Hawaii being NATO states. I've never even heard that. Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah. There's varying versions of it. They're part of NATO. They're part of a couple of other things. Usually, though, it only goes around Hawaii. Alaska being added does happen sometimes, but usually it's primarily Hawaii because we, quote unquote, invaded Hawaii. And in fact, Warhamster has a few things to say about that, and I've been doing some research actually on that.
Yes, he has a lot to say about that. It's too bad he's not here to discuss this.
Well, I'm gonna wait till we do a special episode on that. It's part of the reason why I'm doing the research is in the future. After we get done with the Constitution here, we're gonna have a few episodes to address some of this stuff. So keep those questions bottled up and ready, and just pop and fizz when it's time to, have the proper episode of Mr. Constitution classes. Okay, now that we've gotten through all of this stuff about the Bill of Rights and stuff, let me add one more wrinkle. So there are those who believe in something called an incorporation of the Bill of Rights to the states. The incorporation theory is based on the 14th Amendment. And actually, John Bingham, the author of a couple of the clauses in the 14th Amendment, 14th Amendment Section 1, who supported the idea of incorporating the Bill of Rights in states, his ideas weren't necessarily agreed upon by Congress. And Congress is almost evenly split on it, but it was a real battle. But they decided not, through the Constitution, to incorporate the Bill of Rights to the states. In other words, force the states to follow the language to a T and have the federal government be the enforcer of it. I don't want the federal government to be an enforcer of anything over the states. Since it didn't happen politically, they started doing it judicially, beginning with the slaughterhouse cases. An example of incorporating the Bill of Rights to the states through the justice system is a case of McDonald v. Chicago. Which, we talked about the Heller case earlier in the very beginning of the show. They're talking about overturning parts of the Heller. Well, the case that came before Heller was McDonald v. Chicago, which I think is even more important than Heller. Heller established that's an individual right. But McDonald v. Chicago showed us exactly what not to do when it came to the government courts. So Chicago had outlawed handguns. McDonald sued the city of Chicago for outlawing handguns, stating that it violated the Second Amendment. It made its way up to the United States Supreme Court, and Chicago was told it could not do that because it was a violation of the Second Amendment. And even Clarence Thomas, who I typically adore, agreed that it violated the Second Amendment. If I had been one of those judges, I would have said it doesn't violate the Second Amendment. Second Amendment applies to the federal government, but it does violate the right to keep and bear arms. So I would have come to the same decision, but for a different reason. Chicago, you can't do that because you're violating their rights. But that said, when it happened, people called me up and they're all excited. Oh gosh, Doug, it's a win for gun rights. And I said, well, don't be so sure. Think about what just happened. A federal court dictated to a city what it can or can't do regarding to gun rights. Do you really want the federal government through their courts dictating to your city or your state what they're allowed to do regarding your gun rights? Right now, because of the Heller case, they consider it an individual right. What if they revisit that case and they change that to a collective right? Now, the only way you can keep and bear arms is if you are a part of a quote unquote government approved militia. This is their argument, not mine. Government approved militia being police, military. What happens then? Well, based on precedent, they can confiscate your guns from their point of view. I am not happy with McDonald v. Chicago, not because of how it turned out, but the reasoning behind it. Second Amendment has nothing to do with it. It's all about the fact that it's your right, your natural right, God-given right. And a city or a state is not supposed to make laws regarding your rights that are beyond what's necessary. Exactly. Darren saying, well, then it comes back to states' rights. Exactly. State has the right. And I have a friend of mine who doesn't like the term states' rights, and I kind of get the argument because states, how can the states be given God-given rights? Well, but who are the states? It's the collection of the people. It's actually our rights. When you say states' rights, it's our rights as a collective, as a group. And we have rights as a group to take care of our own business without the federal government being involved. Does that make sense? That's what states' rights are. When I say states' rights, well, the states don't have rights. Well, we do. We have the rights, and it's through our state because we're the collective that makes up the state. But you're right, Darren. The states have rights as well. And they have the right to make laws regarding guns as long as it's only the necessary laws and they're not violating our rights regarding those guns. So it's a very thin line that they're walking also, isn't it? There's a very, very thin border between what's constitutional and unconstitutional. And it's our job as citizens to police that line. Because the most important political office in the country is that of citizen. And we haven't been living up to our political office. In fact, mechanisms that are involved with our political office aren't being used, like the militia. The militia, the problem is when we think about the militia, we think, oh, a bunch of guys armed and they're militaristic, or a bunch of good old boys with pickups, waving Confederate flags or whatever. That's what we think when we hear the word militia. We think organized militia versus unorganized militia. Like an organized militia is those guys that are marching around, and unorganized is a bunch of people. In the beginning, there was no such thing as organized and unorganized. They were one and the same. The militia was the community. And the community met regularly with their city, community, region, county leaders. Who's the head of your militia in your area? Who's the commander over the militia, be it organized or unorganized? County sheriff. What happens if you have a dirtball who doesn't understand the Constitution, or they're supposed to defend the Constitution as a sheriff? You got a problem because your militia's got a bad leader. Militia, in other words, community, better make sure we get the right people in there to run the militia and make sure we're regularly meeting with these people and each other so we know how to defend our county against tyranny.
Conservative Cowboy says the militia is the state National Guard.
No, that's a part of it, but not all of it. There is actually a state militia. That's not the National Guard. Look it up. 24 states have them. California is a regular state militia. It's the only one that trains with live ammunition. I got 2 friends that are in the state militia. It's totally volunteer. Don't get paid. You buy your own uniforms. Whole bit. So you've got the state militia. Now, the National Guard was by law considered to be a part of the militia according to the Dick Act. I think it's 1905. Yeah, that's the name of it, Dick Act. It's a real dick move by the government. That's beside the point. So it's appropriately named, actually. But but I don't believe the National Guard should be a part of the militia because I really believe it's part of the military. But that's just me. But you also have an air guard. You have the naval militia. There are other, and then, of course, the unorganized militia. The U.S. Code recognizes the unorganized militia. I'm not going to give the title number, chapter number. It's always screw it up in my head, but you can look it up. There's an organized and unorganized. Who's the unorganized? You are.
Mm-hmm. I think the term militia has a negative connotation, and really the negative connotation kind of rose out of the Clinton administration, Janet Reno, specifically after
Ruby Ridge.
Well, Ruby Waco. Ridge. Well, really Waco. Actually, it wasn't really Waco. It was actually the Murrah building. What they did was a lot of people don't realize this, that the Murrah building was on the anniversary of Waco.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for it being on that particular day was they used it as they said that this is the militias were trying to get back at the United States for doing this for doing what they did in Waco. I mean, they were very overbearing in Waco, obviously. I mean, that was a gross.
You don't want to get me started on that one.
Yeah. So,
were the people in Waco wacko? Yes, they had every right to have the arms they had, and the main reason they were targeting them was because of how much munitions they had. I really believe that. And I mean, they basically went there and they burned babies, if you want to put it down in plain facts. And then they used the media to make sure you were like, yeah, because those people are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's oh boy, I tell you, this This show is better than any of my in-person classes because we get into some interesting stuff. Better than. Well, I take that back. The Corona class got into that stuff. That's because Ron was there.
Go figure.
But I do miss the Corona class. The good news is the Corona class was a lot of fun, and I miss it. The bad news is there were so many rabbit trails that we chased. I think we went through the Constitution 3 times in 4 years.
Yeah.
Carl's bad. We did it in like 19 weeks.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, that's because that's, I would say the, what was his name? The guy who sat right behind me. Who sat right behind?
Skip.
Skip was on my side.
Yeah, Skip was like your cheerleader almost.
Yeah.
Skip,
I started saying one thing one day. I started saying something, and he was like, his ears perked up, and he just was like, "Oh, yeah," because he didn't. I don't. It's not that he didn't have the courage to say it, but he was just a man on an island.
Yeah, he studies the same stuff you study in a sense, and he's a member of the John Birch Society. So he and I don't necessarily agree on convention states, but he definitely gets into some stuff deeper than I do on certain subjects. He would bring me the New American magazine all the time. Skip actually about 50% of the time, as Mike also, who sat usually behind you too, when he showed up. They're both. Mike's more regular, but Skip also the Chino class now because we have the Chino class on Monday nights, and like about 2/3 of the Corona class goes to the Chino class.
I'd love to go, but man, that's just with gas. I know. I know it. I believe it.
So I'm going to wrap it up with this. Thank you, Tracy.
Yes, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, Doug. This is my passion. Now, I'm going to, with this last 60 seconds to go, let me say this. My goal is to turn this into a movement because I want the country to understand what it's supposed to be. So if they get angry and they become a swarm of ants. What do you mean swarm of ants, Doug? Well, if you ever watch the Nature Channel and there's this carcass in the middle of a field and they do a time lapse and an ant comes here and there, and they kind of take a few bites and that carcass remains. Then the swarm shows up and it's amazing how fast that body is gone after the swarm. We need to be a swarm of ants. Nature has shown us what we need to do, but we've got to be together on it, not a bunch of different colonies. The problem is we're islands out there. Our groups are islands, and we do our little things. We need to be working together, and I believe the Constitution and what I'm trying to do here, I think that combines us, that has us all working together, and I think we can become that swarm of ants. I really do.
I think so. You talked about how the states are, we're supposed to monitor the states. Mm-hmm. Well, the states have taken away our ability to do that long ago by rigging elections.
Mm-hmm. It's time to yank it out of their grip because they're not going to give it back to us. We got to take it from them. Right. Now, of course, you try the peaceful way first. I'm a full advocate of following the law and doing it the peaceful way. I mean, you look back even in biblical times, and you look at Daniel in the book of Daniel, and and they're like, well, you know what? You've got to eat what the king tells you to eat. So he goes to the guards and says, well, I can't eat that. It's not good for my diet. But I tell you what, if I can have permission, my people eat the same thing. How about then after so long, we compare and see who's the healthier? And that's what happened. Daniel went to the authorities, says, hey, this is how I'm going to do it. I want to work with you guys, but I can't abide by that. I will not comply. I can't comply. And that's how it's done. Now, that said, there is a point where that all goes out the window. I hope we don't reach that point. The founding fathers did on Lexington Green. I hope we don't get to that, but that is highly possible. But like I tell people, if that happens and you win, what are you going to replace the system you got rid of with? Do you know? Or are you just going to put something in there that's just as damaging as what they put in the first place? This is why this is important. We need to know. Not only that, but also a lot of people don't know it's time to fight or that they need to fight, even if it's a peaceful fight, because they don't realize what this says or that anything's being violated. A lot of people don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. How do you fight for liberty if you don't know it exists or you don't understand what it is? So this is very important.
I love the book Liberty Defined. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
Mm-hmm. No, by Ron Paul. Mm-hmm. He's got, Liberty Defined. So he defines liberty on a whole number of issues. So, but anyway, that's a topic for another day.
Well, as always, it's been a pleasure.
I have to go pick
up. Boy, Darren's on top of it. Book of Job, chapter 32, verses 21, 22. All right. You're on top of it, Darren. Yeah, Tracy, you can only turn your cheeks so many times. Yeah, well, both cheeks eventually start getting so bruised, you're like, screw it. But no, I get you. I love doing this. Thank you for appreciating it. I am a part of this, and I do these types of things because it is a passion to me. I love this country. I'm the only person you'll ever see. Well, I don't know, maybe there's more of you out there that goes to the Independence Hall and have them play. I don't know, in Knott's Berry Farm, they have this Independence Hall replica. I mean, brick by brick, it's the same as the one in Philadelphia. And in the room where the Declaration and the Constitution was debated, there's a button they'll push to play an audio show for you, and there's a quill and a box at each table, and whoever's talking, that'll light up so you know who's talking in the room and all that. And it goes through the debates over the Declaration of Independence. I'm the only person that I've ever come across yet that's in tears by the end of that. I mean, I love this country so much that I get choked up over that, because what they established was something special. And it hurts me so bad inside that we've basically just.
Well, you know it's twisted when the powers that be have convinced certain elements of law enforcement that those of us who talk about the Constitution are a threat to the country.
When I talk about Constitution classes, I could tell who's on the left because they go, "Oh, you're a Trump person." So the Constitution and we the people and the flag is automatically just makes me a Trump person. No, it makes me an American who loves the founding. That said, I'm not totally against Mr. Trump. I thought he was a good president, but I'm about America. I'm about the Constitution. I'm about what it originally was meant to be, and that's not what we are. It goes back to my thing about the salsa recipe. If the salsa recipe is not being followed, it's going to taste like crap. We're not following the recipe, and so there's a lot of things wrong. And it's funny because I just did a video, Brighteon and BitChutes where I put it. So Brighteon.com/channels/Douglas V Gibbs or BitChute.com/Douglas V Gibbs. I also have a new video, but a different video on YouTube.com/Douglas V Gibbs. But I just did a video because someone says, well, your founding fathers, they talk about equality, but they sure weren't when it came to women voting and slaves, were they? So I answered that question. Say, hey, this is what it was about. They did do the right thing. You're talking to me from the wrong premise. Know the details before you start accusing things. There's a lot more to the story than you know.
That is true, sir. And I hate to cut this off, but I have to go to the vet because I have a cat to pick up.
I have a cat to pick up. That's the first time I've heard that excuse, but it's a good one.
It's not an excuse. It's the truth.
No. I mean, no, it's a real excuse. It's an excuse, but it's an honest excuse. That's okay. I'm just surprised. I got my dogs in here with me, and I rarely do that. I'm just surprised they haven't barked during this whole thing. But anyway. All right, guys. Love you. Real quick side note. June 18th. I'm leaving for out of town. That week I'm going to be out of town, and I'm not going to be able to do the show for sure because I'm going to have my grandkids with me. And so that week, so 18th, 19th, 20th, that's the 21st, there'll be no show on the 21st.
On the 21st. Okay, so, well.
Unless you guys want to do something without me.
Okay, so then next week we're doing the First Amendment. So on the 14th, then I suggest we do that what we were going to do today, which is the kind of like just a catch-all, because I don't want to do the 14th to be the Second Amendment and then skip 2 weeks and do the Second Amendment again. I'd rather do the 28th and then the 5th.
Yeah, the Second Amendment takes a couple of weeks to talk about because there's so many questions and all that.
Yeah.
Darren, amen. I have two of my favorite resources, Noah's 1828 Webster's Dictionary and the Founders Constitution by Liberty Fund. Those are my two biggest resources. Okay, so let's release Ron.
I got to go get
the cat house.
Yeah.
Wait, that didn't sound right.
I got to go get Jackson.
All right. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you guys later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.